Hi, Staci here with Restoration Made Simple. And today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite reads, tools, and things that I use on a restoration job. And then just also when I want to learn, educate myself, or really focus on building a good training plan for technicians, owners, and project managers. And that is the S500. So obviously the industry has other standards, S500, the S520 for mold specifically, and then you have all your carpet cleaning, textile manuals, and that type of thing. But today specifically, I'm going to talk about the S500. So I love the S500 for a couple of very specific reasons. Number one, I can go directly to the source and find out what the industry standard is supporting in my drying process. And so I know that we go to a lot of forums, we go to a lot of blogs, we go to a lot of different places, and we get a lot of different really good information. But to know if that is actually an IICIC standard that we can use to support our work, we need to go directly to the source. And specifically, we need to go to the most recent version of the source. So the most recent version for the S500 is the 5th edition. It came out in 2021. There were some really significant changes as it relates to category of water and some other things that they recommend for drying plans. And so it's important just to make sure that if we're going to a reference, we're going to the most updated reference. Now, I myself like having the hard copy version. And so, when I'm looking for different justifications for clients, or when we're looking to see what we should do with this category 3 flooring assembly or wall assembly, I like to have my paper hard copy. I'm really familiar with it, so I know where to go to reference what I'm looking for. But the majority of us are not carrying hard copy manuals or standards with us, and our technicians and project managers generally are not carrying a stack of standards with them. So I also want to show you how you can get the digital version of these standards as well, so that you and your whole team can have access. The easiest ways is that you log in to IICRC, and then right over here under my account links, you will see here that there is a standards web store link. So you click on there, and it's going to give you the option to get a subscription. So as you can see, the subscription to the IICIC standards online is $200. It is an annual subscription, so every year it is going to renew. But the great thing is it gives you access to all of the current standards, right? But also current field guides, historical information, then also give you information about upcoming standards. So there is a new fire standard that is supposed to be coming out. They've been working on it for a couple, maybe even several years at this point, and it should be coming out. So let's say that I purchased my subscription in February of this year, and the new fire standard comes out in July. I will get automatic access to that new fire standard. Whereas if I were purchasing hard copies for everything, I would have to pay anywhere from $60 to $100+ per manual. And so it can get really, really pricey to keep these standards in the hands of your technicians and your team leads, and then also keep them updated. So that $200 generally is going to give you 4 accesses on desktops, tablets, or phones. And so you can have 4 different people logged into that account access at one time. And then, generally that's going to be enough to support your team so that everybody can have access. Okay, so now that I've kind of talked about how you can access it, either your hard copy or getting the digital subscription, let's go through maybe a couple of reasons why, I really recommend having an S500 and really understanding it. So the first thing is, and I'm going to go back to my hard copy version, and then we'll go back and show you how you can use the digital version. But right at the very beginning of you're going to have your definitions. And the definitions is where you're going to find all that information, like your category of water, how a job can deteriorate from a category 1 source to a category 2 loss. And then it gives you your class of water, 1, 2, and 3. It defines secondary damage, right? And what secondary damage is and how it is defined. It talks to you about what a drying plan is, explains to you the principles of monitoring and all of those things. So the definitions is really, really important. And then it also talks to you about those S500 or IICIC standard words, which are should, shall, can, those words, so that you can really have a better understanding of what the standard's actually telling you once you get into it. So the definitions are right at the beginning and really, really important for helping us to identify what type of job we're dealing with so we can put together a good drying plan. So we could talk about that for days, and I would, but you probably don't want me to. So let's go to another reason why I just think that every owner, project manager, and lead technician should be using the S500. And I'm going to go right here to, this is the S500, the 5th edition, but you can also see that you have access to all of them, the 4th edition, the 3rd edition, the 2nd edition, even the 1st edition, but then also you have access to all of the other standards, professional inspection for hard surface flooring coverings, your textiles, your carpet cleaning, all of that, you will have access to all of them. So I'm going to go up here to my 5th edition. And you can use a couple of different views on this. This is the view that I really prefer. I like having my table of contents over here on the left-hand side, and then I have all of my information over here. And so see, I go to important definitions. It's going to right here give me my shall, should, recommended, may, can, those definitions that are really important so we understand what the S500 is really recommending to us. But where I want to go first is down here. You're going to have the meat of all of the standard. I really like the appendixes and this chapter 16, which is materials and assemblies. We generally think about drying as materials that we're drying. Can we restore them? How should they be cleaned? How are we extracting? What type of air movement is important? But I like this section because it talks about the materials as part of an assembly. And so it gets into, removing, replacing unrestorable materials based on, what that assembly is. And it will give it to you based on a category 1 loss, and then how that differs based on a category 2 and 3 loss. And so it will go through demolition, and then it gets into specific materials for assemblies, heavy timber, framing, engineered wood, brick, that type of thing. So it gives you some really good information about your assemblies. The part that I find most important, or I go to time and time again when I'm either figuring out what type of drying plan I want to put together, or figuring out how I can justify the drying plan that I put together, is I go to this Appendix A. And what this Appendix A does is it lays out the different processes, starting with, is a material restorable or not? Then it gets into extraction, cleaning, drying, airflow, and then additional stuff. And so you can see that each one of these categories has their codes, A, B, C, and D. Obviously, some of them have more. Cleaning has quite a few codes that it can have. And so let's go back to the beginning here, where we have restorability. You see that restorability has 4 codes, A, B, C, and D. Restorable, generally unrestorable, and then D is unrestorable. So it also gives us some additional information based on if that material is part of an assembly. So let's look at B, where it says generally unrestorable. This material or assembly can be restored if it is structurally sound, cleanable, and can be returned to an acceptable condition. In some cases, the materials may not be damaged, but their presence can slow drying or more critical materials or assemblies behind or below them. And then it gives the example of vinyl wallpaper over wet drywall. So drywall is generally restorable and actually dries out really nicely if the loss doesn't have contamination in it. But it's telling us here that potentially the finish on that drywall is going to affect whether or not we can restore it. It uses here vinyl wallpaper as an example because vinyl wallpaper is really a moisture barrier. And so we're not going to be able to evaporate water through that vinyl wallpaper. Also, if you have a semi-gloss or a gloss paint, you could have a similar issue with that wet drywall. And so it gives you really good information. So let's now see how these codes are going to relate to a material. So you go in here a couple of pages, and now we have all of our material and our assembly situations here. So let's go back. We'll just look at this. We have engineered wood as in plywood OSB, and then we have engineered wood as far as MDF is concerned. And it gives you information about the characteristics of that material or as it relates to that material in an assembly. And it will tell you right here that engineered woods in this category are less water resistant than plywood or OSB. So let's look at their restorability codes. For, an OSB type engineered wood, we have restorability code of B. And if we remember correctly, that is generally restorable. But if we look down here with MDF, and again, category 1, 2, and 3, it's telling us that it is generally not restorable, right? And so we can see the difference in these two types of materials, and it's going to give us additional information. Now, remember, we have codes for restorability, extraction, cleaning, drying, airflow, and then additional comments that may be necessary. The cleaning codes, let's go back to, so our cleaning codes are going to talk to us about things being unsalvageable, initial bulk removement, that type of thing. But it's also going to get down to things like if you have a code H, that's what's going to give you the recommendation for detailed cleaning by a HEPA vacuum. Right? So if we need justification for using a HEPA vacuum for the cleaning process on a specific job, we can go to that material, look at that code, and get our justification for doing a HEPA vacuum. We'll get our justification for using a low pressure flush, right? If we need to use that, it's going to give us our justification for when we should be using a high pressure flush for like our power washing and that type of thing. So just really good tool to have. I know that a lot of owners and lead technicians are not aware that the new edition has this in it, but it's a really great tool. All right, that is my plug for knowing and loving your S500, also your other manuals as well, like the S520. But remember, you can have your hard copies, but make sure that they are the newest edition. And then you can also supplement your hard copies if you already have them with that digital subscription so that you and other members of your team have access to all of the manuals that you may need. And remember, you don't have to pay for an additional updated version when a new version comes out, which is great. You will just automatically get access to that with your subscription. So I hope that I have converted you into somebody who is interested in keeping that S500 with you and really using it to justify all of the good work that you're doing out there to make sure that the clients are safe, your technicians are safe, and your buildings that you're working on are restored to the best possible condition.